Hey girl, welcome back to the Church Girlz Show. I'm your host, Jasmine Ford, and I'm here for those of you who's transitioning to college or who's currently in college, and to be a resource for you if you're looking to develop, maintain, or shine your light so that you can walk in your God-given purpose. So in our introduction for our new show with the podcast on YouTube, everything like that, I said that once a month I'm going to try to have somebody come in to tell their story, their college experience, and talk about their pitfalls, their ups and downs, and how God really brought them out with that. And so I figured, why not just start it off with my story? I know in previous videos, if you have watched old videos on YouTube, I talked about bits and pieces, but I've never really made it come full circle and told the whole layout and like why I have Church Girlz now. So let's just go ahead and get started with that. I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible. So I grew up in a Christian household with my parents. I have 5 sisters, number 5 of 6. And my parents taught us to have a relationship with God. They never was into like religious stuff, you know, like you can't wear this, you can't do that, being super religious. They taught us just to be authentic. I'm happy that my parents were always real about it. And as you guys, some of you may know that some of you may have parents or grew up with someone, a guardian, who went to church and, you know, they had their relationship with God, but at some point you have to have your own. So as it started to get like junior year of high school, when you start to make those decisions for college, I was like, okay, God, like, I know I want to go to college and I have to go to college. And so I said, I need to not just rely on the prayers and the things my parents do. I need to hear God for myself to make this big decision, because I have no clue. Like, you know, you're 17, how can I make a decision for the rest of my life right now, you know? And so I just did what I knew to do. I tried to pray, I tried to go on my own little fast, I tried to read my Bible and pay a little more attention to church. And so as I did that, I continued to narrow down my options of colleges and universities, the pros, the cons, and majors, and you know, doing all that stuff. You know, you're trying to see about how the campus food is, trying to see if how the social life and the parties are. I'm trying to weigh it all, you know. And so as I began to keep making that more and more narrow, one day I was at home when I was living with my parents, and I was there by myself, and that's the first time I really heard God very clearly speak to me. And he said, go to Delaware State University, major in mass communications, learn everything you need to learn, and when you graduate, you'll never have to compete for a job, and I'll give you your own lane. So I was mad hyped. Like, I got direction, God said this clearly, and I went after it. So I went to college, super excited, and just really dove in, you know, joined the newspaper staff, joined Toastmasters public speaking club. I hosted a sports show at one point. It seems so ridiculous because I didn't know what I was talking about, but I hosted a sports show in my first semester, and I just did different things, became the editor. I went to conferences that the school paid for. So I was on a good momentum, but along the way, I got distracted. I got distracted from, one, what I was supposed to be doing in college, and totally forgot about what God promised me. And so, you know, first semester, I played it kind of safe in school. I was with my friends. I would just really hang out with my friends and go to campus events, but nothing else. Talk maybe this guy, that guy, but nothing, you know, too heavy. And then I ended that first semester, I met this guy, and he seemed like the perfect package, right? And so we kind of moved quickly, and I fell fast, really, really fast, very, very hard. And simultaneously with that, I also began to party a whole lot more. Not party, I'm not gonna say party, but I began to like start drinking, because I wasn't drinking before that. I started drinking, I started hanging out with a crowd that like, we started hanging out with different type of people. And all my friend group was kind of shifting and changing, and that just continued to progress into my sophomore year. It just kind of hit hard, and it wasn't good. And you know, we started going out more. I hung out with friends. My friend group was very different. We were really a mixed bunch, and some of them smoked a whole lot, so I was around that. I didn't smoke, but they a few of them smoked a lot, so sometimes if I was with them, I'd be around that. And just like the thing, some people are used to those type of atmospheres, but I'm just not. Like I said, I grew up in a, you know, what people would consider a wholesome household. I was that goody good of the group. I was the, you know, like spoiled daddy's little girl, one of the group that they would make fun of me about. And so I wasn't used to it. Also, my relationship got more and more toxic. It went from, became controlling. And I remember in sophomore year, it was really bad. I was that friend who sometimes would stay in on like Friday nights and going out with her friends because I was like going through something with my relationship or crying or got in a fight or something. And I was the party pooper sometimes and ruined the party. And you know, some of you guys may have that friend, or you may be that friend. Yeah, I was that girl. And so it was just really bad. And I remember saying to myself one night when I was in and all my friends were out, and I was like, I have to get out of this relationship. But then I remember start bawling my eyes out because I was like, I know I don't have the strength to do it. I knew I was in too deep and I didn't know what to do. So that continued on, and I got tired of the tears. I got tired of the fights. I got tired of being embarrassed. I got tired of all of those things. And so by the time I became a junior, you know, you kind of made your way through college a little bit and you think you cute. I just kind of was on my hot girl summer stuff. You know, everybody on their hot girl summer. I was on my hot girl. It wasn't summer, it was fall semester, but I was on my hot girl stuff. So it was just like, if you want to act like that, I'm gonna do me. So no, I didn't necessarily break up with him, but I was just like, I'm gonna do me. And so if you want to act a fool or you want to be mean or whatever, instead of crying, it's not good, but instead of crying, I would just sit there and put my phone on block before I go out with my friends and tell my friends, if he call you, don't answer. And I would just do me. If we hanging out with other guys, I'm hanging out with other guys. Sometimes I would be talking to other guys without knowing. That's not good to do. You know, the answer should have been to just leave the relationship, but we do stupid stuff sometimes. And so that's what I did. Me and my sister, we would be out like Thursday, Friday, Saturday of fall semester. We was pretty much like at some kind of, I was over parties a little bit for the most part. So we were at like a lot of kickbacks where they drinking and stuff and there's music and people vibing. We'd be like at that. And you know how it is in well, some of y'all might know, hopefully you don't. But you know, you find guys who you kind of, you know, you can mooch off of. That's not good. But that, you know they somewhat feeling you, they like you, or they probably just want to sleep with you or whatever. And so they gonna get y'all what y'all want. You know, they gonna buy y'all your bottles, or with my friends, they gonna buy them their weed or whatever. And that's what it kind of looks like, which is really different from how I was brought up, knowing that and going into school with being super eager and knowing I have a calling on my life. And you know, I always knew I had a call on my life since a teenager, but just really knowing I have a calling on my life and God gave me direction. This is looks totally different, right? I'm over here in this toxic relationship. I got secrets and I'm dealing with other guys and I'm drinking a lot and I'm around people who smoke a lot and I don't really feel like going to church. And you just kind of, you know, eventually, because I knew it was beating me up, I kind of put on this defense mechanism, like, I don't care, you know. But that can only last for so long, especially somebody like me. But for a while I got kind of cold and cold-hearted and just didn't care. And so yeah, that's what that really looked like. I thought I was just cute that semester, you know. I was in good shape. I was getting ready for a pageant, so I was eating good and working out and had my little job and my grades were good. And I finally felt stable again, unlike the year before where I felt so unstable. And so that homecoming, you know, homecoming's in the fall, you know, at HBC, Delaware State University is a HBC, by the way. So y'all know it's a little more, it's late at HBCU homecoming. But you know, every year it's a big deal to go to homecoming. You get your outfits, you plan everything out because it's like the time, you know. And so every year I made a vow since freshman year I would always go to the gospel concert because it was free for us on campus. And I figured if I could spend my money to get new outfits and pay for tickets to go to the concert, step show, party, everything else, I can go to the gospel concert. So my sister and I went to the gospel concert at the end of homecoming on that Sunday. And we dragged ourselves out of bed. And I did not want to go at all. But I was like, okay, I'll go. You know, I'll go. and we just threw on something like, you know, a hoodie and leggings and Uggs and a baseball cap, and just try to hurry up and get there. And so we get there, and I was so annoyed. A lot of times at the gospel concert, people, like church people from the outside, come to see whoever the main, you know, artist is who's coming. And I didn't know who he was. His name sounded familiar, but I didn't know who he was. And so they got you know, they good church stuff on, and they're looking at us like we don't belong, and this is our school's concert. And so I'm just sitting here like, okay, I don't want to be here. And sometimes, y'all, church folk can do the absolute most. They did the most. They, you know, running and shouting all over the place. They got like a million acts before the main guy come out. And so I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so ready to go. But the thing is that disheartened me when I look back on it is how many people who were from the church as who's supposed to be a representative of God, who was sitting right next to us, behind us, in front of us, and looking at us like we were a problem because we didn't look the part, because we weren't enthused and into the service, and because, you know, we may have, you know how sometimes you might still smell like a little bit of alcohol from the night before. Like, that probably was the case, but still, you know what I mean? And that could have been a moment for so many people around us, an auditorium full of people, but they're looking at us like we don't belong. And so I'm just like, I'm so ready to go. My sister and I looked at each other like, we giving this, the only thing that kept us in that seat was the Lord, because I was ready to go. It was making me so mad. Like, it was just ridiculous. It was one of those things. And I'm not trying to say church ridiculous. I want you guys to understand what I'm saying. It wasn't always about ministry. It was more so about religion and trying to shout. And it was more, you guys get what I'm saying? Like, it was one of those. Anyway, so we said we're giving the main artist. So finally it was time for the main artist to come out, who was coming, the celebrity, whatever, gospel artist. And so I was like, we'll give him about 5 minutes. If we not impressed, we out, or we're gonna go over to the grill to get some food in the student center. And so we sat there, and I'm just like, I'm already got an attitude at this point, because I'm just sitting here like, this was a mess. Like, these people are so extra. And he came out, there's this young black guy came out, and he had a mic, his guitar, and he was dressed like casual. So it made me feel better automatically, because, you know, a lot of times, sometimes when it comes to church stuff, it can be traditional church, you know, they dress up a lot. And so him coming out with jeans, sneakers, and his t-shirt made me feel better automatically. But the first thing that comes out his mouth is, we're not gonna do all that running around and shouting. We're gonna y'all gonna sit here and you're gonna listen. That got my attention. I don't know about y'all, but I'm the type of person where, if you know me, I'm a straight like shooter. I'm like one of those people who like it straight. I don't need a bunch of fluff. I don't need all that, you know, filler. I'm a straight type of person. And so somebody coming out and talking straight like that, I like you already. You talking my type of language. And so he says that, and he just went through his album. He sang his album. It was just him and his guitar. And he has a beautiful, beautiful voice. If you look him up, like I said, his name's Jonathan McReynolds. And he would just, but the thing that got me was, he would tell his story of the place he was at in life. Then he would sing the song. And a lot of the songs he wrote on that album he was talking about was, he wrote a lot of those songs while he was in college. So I could relate. And he would talk about, like, he has this one song called No Gray, and he talks about how half of me wants to serve God, but half of me likes the stuff in the world, and I don't know what to do. And he talked about what he was doing in college with this one or this girl, or doing this and doing that. And it was just like, I get it. And so it was the first time I really felt like I was in the presence of God in a long time. And when those moments happen, it's like, on one hand, it's like everything you're doing is exposed. Like, whoa, you get to really you get to really locate yourself. Like, I'm really far out. Like, you know, I'm further out than I should be. But on the other hand, at the same time, it's like God saying, it's okay. And so that's how I felt. So I went home, downloaded his albums, and I'm not really like that. I'm not like a big like following and staying up with music type of person. I'm just not like that. So it was a big deal for me to go home and download his whole album. And so I downloaded his album, and I just listened to it that night, and I just cried, because there's this one song on there that it's not my favorite song, but it spoke to me the most in that season. And it was called Coming Out. And the song goes, excuse my singing, y'all. And the song goes, he says, and I don't know what it will take, but I'm coming out. It wasn't meant for me to stay here long and be content with living wrong. No, I'm coming out. God will get the glory out my life. I'll get it right this time. I'm coming out. And later on he says, and I'm coming out of fear, out of depression, out of sin. And then he says, something more importantly, I'm going to love, the joy, the peace, whatever. And that song just was like exactly what my heart wanted to say, but I didn't know how to say it, didn't have the words. I don't know how to approach God right now. So I would sing that song like every single day. And I began to try to go back to church, like go home to go to church on Sundays. I lived only like 30 minutes. I lived 30 minutes from my house, so probably like 45 minutes from the church that I would attend growing up. And so I would try to make an effort to do that. And I would just sing that song up and down the highway or wherever I went. I would just sing that song. And it was just my heart's cry. It really was, when I just felt like I was lost. And in those moments, the only thing I could picture, it felt like I was in this ditch. You know, seen those military movies when it's like raining and they're in the ditches and it gets muddy? I felt like I was in one of those, except it was real deep. Or trenches. I think it's called the trench, not the ditch, the trench. And I felt like I was trying to climb out, and every time I almost got to the top, I would slide down and slide down, and that's how it felt for me. So I just was determined that whatever this song is, this is my faith being put out there, that this is going to be my life. Like, I'm coming out of this darkness that I'm in. And so Christmas break came around, and I was sitting in that same spot that had been years prior when God told me that, spoke to me before I went to college. And I was by myself again, sitting in that same spot, and the Lord says, it's time for you to get ready for after college. And I'm like, huh? He's like, it's time for you to prepare for what I have for you after school. So first of all, I'm like, God, like, you know, I ain't here for you in a minute. So I'm like, okay, how do I do that? Like, what are you talking? Well, first I was like, what are you talking about? What you mean prepare? And he's like, don't you remember the promise I made you? And I said, no, I don't. And what's so cool about that is, so many times, you know, if you make somebody a promise, like you promise them something, you kind of hope they forget a little bit, because you really don't want to do it. So it just was so cool to me that he made me a promise I forgot, and he gonna remind me, versus it being the other way around. When somebody make you a promise, you have to go back to them and say, remember, you promised me. And so that to me was just like showing just God's heart. And it's just like, okay. So I was like, no. And I honestly did not remember. And he reminded me, I told you to go to school. I told you major mass comm, learn everything, and then I'll give you your own lane. You'll never have to compete for a job. So I said, all right, bet, like, cool. So I'm like, what should I do? So I ran down the list. Like, you know, I've been in school for about 2.5 years now. I learned this, I learned that, I learned, you know, am I going to write? Am I going to be editing? Am I going to do like graphics? I'm going to do this, that, and the third. Just some of the things I learned a little bit and dibble-dabbled in. And he said, you're going to do all of it. So I said, what? Okay, so what do I need to do? So I'm thinking he's going to tell me, give me a direction directly aligned with that. Like, what you want me to do first? And he says, break up with your boyfriend. Bruh. Bruh, no. That's asking too much. So I'm like, seriously? Like, all the things you could have asked me, you told me to break up with him. So I was like, no, I can't do it. You know, I'm like, we've been in a good place for the last few months. You know, it's not the same. I think we're a little older, a little more mature. You know, everything's going to be fine. I was just like, I can't do it. I just couldn't wrap my mind around the idea of not being with him and one day not knowing him. I'm like, no. So the Lord left me alone. Was like, all right, cool. Left me alone. And the new semester started. And mind you, me and my boyfriend at the time lived in the same building. We lived on the on-campus apartments. I was on the 4th floor, he was on the 1st floor. So breaking up, like, I don't want to see him anyway. Like, we live in the same building. And so 3 conversations that week came up when me and him were talking, and each time I just felt the Holy Spirit say, like, go ahead and just say it's time to be done. And I just was like, no, I can't do it. So I had 3 chances. By the end of the week, it felt like all hell broke loose. We got into like a really bad fight where everybody knew. It was just really embarrassing, just really bad. I don't even know what it was about. And we broke up. So I remember going back to my room upstairs and just like, God, you happy now? We broke up. And he's like, yeah, because now we can get started. And so we ended up, talking. Everything was like cool. Like, when everybody else, when all the drama was down, it was just like, I'll be straight. Like, we're going in different directions at this point. And we knew that. And so I just, from that point forward, made it a point I had to spend time with God. And I was so afraid of what it was going to feel like that hurt and pain that comes with breaking up with something like that, especially when you're so attached. But it felt like God just had me in this bubble where I didn't feel the pain the same way. And I just spent time with God. Conveniently, that semester, I had class only twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday. And so all the other days, I would just spend time with God. I would just clean my room, spend time with God, straighten things up, because my sister, she was a squatter in my room that semester because she was going to school for, my sister, Nicole, who's a year younger, she was going to school for, she was in school full-time, majoring in chemistry, and then she was also going to school to get her nail certification as a nail tech. And so she used her money that she would have used to stay on campus to get her other license. So I let her squat with me. So I had to always make sure if they ever did room checks that it didn't look like someone was staying with me. So I would like make sure it was cleaned up and all that stuff. And I would just spend time with God and reading blogs and watching YouTube and listening to sermons and just worshiping and just praying and trying to hear his voice. And during that time, I learned, one, that God had to tell me first, before I could do anything, had to tell me that my boyfriend had to go, because I had made him a God in my life. He was an idol, and I gave him the seat of power that God should be sitting in my heart. And the thing is, we can't do nothing until that seat is cleared and God's in it. Don't mean you need to be perfect. Doesn't mean that you won't have shortcomings and some things that you need to still work on. But that seat does need to be where you're saying, God, I'm allowing you to, be Lord over my life. And that couldn't happen if my boyfriend was still in that seat. And that's what had happened. So let me see. So many things happened that semester. I just learned so many things about obedience. I turned 21 that next month, and my sister and cousin was planning a party for me, and the Lord told me to cancel it like a week before. And I'm like, seriously, you keep telling me to do all this stuff? And so I canceled it because I was like, I learned my lesson once. I'm not letting this blow up in my face. But I wanted to be obedient, and I was just like, okay, God, I canceled it, and I just went out to dinner with them. And during that time, my cousin and sister thought my cousin is like my brother, we're close. So they thought I was crazy, like, what is going on with her? And so I just didn't really know what to say. I was just kind of by myself. I wasn't with my friends much. I was just in my room a whole lot. I didn't go out when they would be like, oh, we're going here, we're gonna go to the yards, those are off-campus apartments, we're gonna go to so-and-so place, this, that, third. A lot of times I'd be like, no, I'm not going. On weekends, I would go home. I would try to go home like every weekend to go to church. And so, yeah, that's what happened. And then along the way, the Lord, I remember one day I was sitting there, the Lord said, get a binder. And I'm like, for what? And he said, just get it, put paper in it, dividers. And it just sat there for a month. And the Lord just taught me that sometimes there's steps to things and that you have to learn the process of what I'm calling you to do. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. And I'm like, a binder. And it sat there for a month. And one day he told me, he had something to tell me. And he gave me the word fashion. And I'm like, fashion? What did God do with anything? And I didn't know that was going to be one of the pillars for what is now Church Girlz. I didn't know what he was trying to birth through me. He taught me how to sit there with him. And anything that goes in this binder needs to come directly from the Holy Spirit. None of your thoughts, no good ideas, just me. And before you knew it, my binder was filled up with ideas and this and that. And that summer, he gave me the word. I asked God, what is this thing that you're going to do through me? I asked him for months, and one day he finally said, Church Girlz. And I could see the words come up like a little bit, not in the natural, but like in my spirit, I could see the words. And with a Z, how I have it spelled. And at first, I hated it. I hated the name Church Girlz, honestly, until probably the day I launched it. I hated the name Church Girlz. I was like, no, Church Girlz, you couldn't give me something better than that. I'm like, that sounds so corny to me. Like, who wants to say they're a church girl? That's just typical. That's this, that. I was like, I don't like it. And I really hated it for so long. And the Lord said, that's exactly why I want you to call it Church Girlz, because all the feelings that come up in you is what comes up in a lot of people. And he said, when you when you really look at the context of what Church Girlz is, it's church, which is the body of Christ. The church is the body of Christ. We made it more into this religious thing, but he's like, that's my body, that's my bride. And that's his heartbeat. Like, he loves the church. And then girls, it's girls. They put a Z on it just to make it look a little, I guess, fancy or whatever. But he's like, really, the girls of the body of Christ. And it doesn't mean you're in necessarily church. As long as you belong to Christ and you're saved, you are the church. You know what I mean? So he's like, this is what I want to call it. And I still didn't understand that, but over time he was showing me that it don't matter if they're the same way you felt out of place in this arena, or someone make you feel like this, whether you're in church, not church. As long as you're saved, you're part of the church. You're a church girl. And I want you to remarket, rebrand, and make that name mean something different, because it has a negative connotation on it now, because people do think church girls are goody goods, or church girls are pretend they're good but they're really bad and they really do all this other stuff and they're hypocrites, or church girls are corny and they boring and they mad whack. And it's like, I don't want people to perceive it that way, because that's my word. He's like, the church is mine, so I don't want it to have no negative connotation connected to it. So I want you to take it and change it. And that's why we're going to use fashion. We're going to use all these other methods. And that's why the way things look, sometimes I can get so caught up on it, because that's the first thing God told me is, make sure the very first thing people experience look a certain way, so it kind of diminishes that mindset they may have when they think of church girls, but then they see something that's cuter. Of course, I only have the budget that I have for right now, but it's going to be grand one day. So that's why sometimes I get caught up in that a little bit. But that's what he told me. And so he continued on, and we grew. I wrote a blog. I had a blog. I got some traction. It was really good. But then senior year came. Let me try to wrap this up. Senior year came, and that little bubble that I had around me kind of popped. And I was it was a battle. It was like a fight for my life. It felt like a fight for just my calling. It was a fight for the purpose that God had for me. And I went into senior year, and it was just showing that, okay, this tug of war between the calling of church girls, but I'm still the partying, drinking, or not partying, but the kickbacks, drinking, the guys. It's not necessarily gone. It's not necessarily, you haven't overcome this yet. And so now you gotta fight. And who are you gonna let win? And that's what it was. It was a battle between black and white. It was a battle between, good and evil per se. And it was a fight. And so sometimes it could look hypocritical. Like, one minute I may be praying down and watching sermons and God, praying about all these things. The next minute, I might be drinking at 3 o'clock in the afternoon into the night with my friend. Or, I would just do stuff like that. So it was a fight. And some people look at it as hypocritical, but the thing is, what the Lord taught me in that time is, allow me to do it. Don't try to put these restraints on you, trying to do it in your strength, or trying to look like the right Christian. And so I allowed myself to be okay with where I was. Be okay with, if I'm at the place where I still gonna go drink, that's just where I am. Not excusing it or justifying it, but in that same token, in that same breath, saying I have the faith that this won't be the case anymore. Yes, I may try to start talking to my ex again, but by faith, this will not be one day. And even though I was there, I was believing that wouldn't be the case. So I decided I have to fill myself up. So I decided that I have to fill myself up with more of the word than of what was around me, distractions around me. And I knew eventually this part would fall off. And so that's what one of the message I always want to get across is, let it be organic, let it be authentic, let the Holy Spirit do it, because he will you fill yourself up with more of him and more of God, those other things will fall off. But don't try to force yourself to be what people think you should be at the time. It's okay. Just be real with where you're at and not justify it an excuse for you to stay where you are, but just being real with, this is where I'm at. You don't got to, it's nobody's business, first of all, because that's one thing. It was nobody's business of where I was doing with my relationship with God, because you also have to be careful of not being so quick to trying to, yes, God spoke to me about Church Girlz, but it wasn't time yet because he was still developing me. And if I would try to start doing stuff too soon, but I wasn't developed yet because I wasn't over some things, you put yourself in a bad spot. So don't step out too soon. Stay behind the curtain where you're still trying to maneuver it. So no, it's nobody's business how I'm growing and what God called me to do. And it's nobody's business that I'm doing stuff I ain't got no business doing right now. The only thing is that I need to make sure I'm walking along this path what God called me to do and let it authentically happen. Do not allow religion. Don't fake it, because that's going to make you be religious and have these acts, and it prevents you from having a real relationship with God and really allowing God to develop you and you walking in what God called you to be. Walk in. So I got out of, I graduated from that battle of senior year, and just the Lord continued to develop me. So there's so many things that happened after that, but that's really what happened in college. From there, I got my first job. It was good. I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. Then got a promotion and moved to Greensboro. But during that time in Charlotte, I was still kind of doing the same things I was doing in college a little bit, but still growing in God. And when I got to Greensboro, that's where I was isolated, and God took me up to a whole nother level. And you know, it was uncomfortable season, and sometimes when things are uncomfortable, we run back to the past, and I started talking to my ex again. But this time it was different. When I asked God, okay, do you want me to be done? And he said yes. I'll tell you, that's a whole nother, I'll give another video for that because that's crazy. But anyway, I was officially done forever, and I just decided to grow in God and go at it hard. And God continued to develop me, saying, you're going to do Church Girlz soon, it's coming soon. And all this stuff happened. January 2018, I launched Church Girlz. That was a step of faith. And I've really been, I have to stay before God on it. This is not my idea. And he has great things he wants to do with me. But I had to, you know, stop and get some things together to be making sure I see it clearly. And God spoke to me and said, I want you to, this is targeted for girls 17 to 21, because the church so many times lose this group because they go off to college or they're transitioning to adulthood, and there's a lot that happens. They're trying to find themselves. There's distractions, and so they're not under that covering with their parents. So I want you to help me get them and have your story be a testimony to that, to be a testament that you can be lost, you can be in college, you can be going through all this stuff that most of us do in college, but it's okay. But all you need to do is say yes to God. I'm not going to tell you, don't do this, don't do that, don't da-da-da-da. You already know what you should and shouldn't do. I don't have to tell you. The only thing I want you to do is say yes to God, because God can do the rest. As long as you say yes to him, I don't care that you drink. I don't care about all the other stuff you're doing. God will take care of it. And that's where my stance is. There's enough people beating that you're doing bad. And God said, I want you to get my girls. And so that's what I'm on a mission to do. I'm on a mission to let you guys know that it's okay where you're at. It's okay whatever you're doing. Not it's okay, I don't want to say it's okay, but I understand. And God still loves you, and God's still like, listen, let's just say yes. Just give me a chance. You know, that's it. And you know, you can be in church, you can love God, you can do all these things, you can still be cute, you can still be successful. And then the bottom line is, want you to be who God called you to be, and develop yourselves allow God to develop you so that you can shine your light in this world and walk in your God-given purpose. So that's where Church Girlz came about, is from my own experience and God saying, hey, I want you to do something about it, because there's nothing there. There's stuff when you're younger. They have so many organizations for teenagers while you're in high school or church or wherever, and then they have all these new ministries and clubs and organizations for grown women, and it's like you know, like this boss woman this, millennial woman this, da 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 da. It's like, yeah, I want to be there one day, but right now you're in this weird in-between stage, and I want to make sure I'm a resource for all of you who are. So there's my story, if that makes sense. There's more parts that I can go more into in depth with as we go on in these series, but I just want to be the first to come on here, tell my story, and I'm gonna have other people come on as well, because sometimes you may not relate to me, but you may relate to somebody else I bring on here. And as it's fine if you don't relate to me, as long as you have maybe some type of somebody ahead of you. I think it's always important to have somebody who can relate to where you are and also relate and who's established a life of where you want to be. I think it's always important to be able to see that and have that tangible, because the enemy sometimes make you feel like it's just you, or make you feel like it's not attainable. I know he attacked me with that so bad that I would never be the woman I am now when I was in college. And so I just like to see examples and hear how people got there. So I hope you guys enjoyed the story. I hope it's helped someone, and I will see you guys next week on another episode of the Church Girlz Show. So I'll see you guys. See ya.